capacity and load factor numbers, we're in the 90%, which is incredibly good, and a great number to share with our airline partners, especially when we tell them we need more planes because we're filling the planes that you're bringing in right now, which will of course help our overall numbers. You can look last year, August 2022 comparison, we're only in the 80%, mid 80s. On our load factor number or number of seats filled on a particular plane. From a fiscal year perspective, which is really hard to compare right now because it's only 2 months that we're looking at, we're less than 2% compared to 2019, and we're again around 6.5% of our 2019 numbers fiscal year. But 660,000, that's only 40,000 short of our peak year. So we're getting there. We're really close, single digit numbers, and I think we're doing all the right work to increase our number of passengers.
Is this for busiest time?
July and August are very peak months. September always dips down. You can see that on the chart. It's almost incredibly matching. You know, the trend is incredibly matching, even through COVID. October though always peaks up. So when we report our October numbers, which we're still collecting, September will have a dip. We're still collecting our September numbers. At the conclusion of October, we'll see that peak. A big part of that is there's 4-day weekend coming up, especially with school holiday. There's Indigenous Peoples Day. There's Canadian Thanksgiving next week. So there's a lot of holidays happening in October. Not to mention, why wouldn't you come to Vermont during October? It's pretty amazing. And then November, it'll dip down again. That's all I have to report.
Great. Commissioners, any comments or questions on the consent agenda? Very great.
Nick, looking at the info on page 6, which just has information on the air carriers, air taxi, general aviation, military. And there's a substantial drop this month compared to last July, or July of this year compared to July of last year for military flights, down over 20%. Any insight as to why that drop exists?
There's a couple reasons. This is July numbers, so we received that data point from the FAA directly, which is a few months behind. That's why it's only July. The Vermont Air National Guard did have a training mission that they went out of state for a little while. That could have and would have contributed to that decrease in numbers. And then if it's a matter of their training capacity and their training missions. Now, if we compared that to 2018, 2017, those numbers would be most likely significantly decreased when there were full F-16 operations. So there is a pretty major change in the decreased number of operations happening with military. And that number also includes transient military aircraft, not just stationary aircraft. So it's a mixture of all of that.
Because my first thought was, oh, well, that might make sense because of the recent accident that occurred with the F-35 that just went down in some neighborhood in South Carolina. Maybe they put them on hold. And then I saw that actually this is a couple months behind.
Right.
So just a follow-up with that, did you hear anything from the Vermont National Guard concerning that accident? Perhaps, because oftentimes when you hear about an accident, the military immediately says, we're going to wait and take a look at what happened and why.
Any aircraft, right?
Sure, yeah, that would make sense. Yeah. Any info from Vermont National Guard on that?
So there are different versions of the F-35, and right now not right now, but the Air Force flies the F-35A model. There's different versions. There's different reasons for looking at the technology and any investigation that might have happened. I've received no information from the Air National Guard on reduction of flights due to that specific reason. But it could certainly be something I can ask them to follow up on.
They were the Marines that were flying it, right? Wasn't it
yeah,
the Marine Corps?
which is the B model. The VTOL. This is Stacy Levely, by the way. She is. We've introduced her to you before, but just by name. But this is Stacy. She's our new operations manager. So yeah, the Marine Corps flies the F-35B, which is the vertical takeoff and landing version.
From what I understand, it's weather related.
Commissioners, any other comments or? All right, all those in favor of adopting the contents of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
I,
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. We move on to section 5 of the agenda, which is action items. And up first is 5.01. Sorry, well, 5.1. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to recommend the city council approve a 5-year contract with Casella Waste Systems for resource recovery services at the airport. And that's moved by Helen
Second.
and seconded by Greg, and discussion to be led by Larry.
All right, we go out for proposals every 5 years. 5 years was up a few months ago, so we went out for RFP. Casella was the only proposer in this case. The price didn't change significantly and in line with what we would anticipate. Also include this, which most people will see, as we are getting new receptacles because these kind of get clogged up and a little bit harder to use. They're beautiful, they're nice looking and everything, but we need something a little bit more functional. So they'll include, I think there's 27 new receptacles for the materials, either recycling waste and that people drop. So this is a 5-year contract. Marie might be able to speak to this better than I can, but usually it's $45,000-$50,000 a year in costs, but it's based on what's generated. So the cost, we do rent compactors from them and all the containers, the big one, the roll-offs, dumpsters, and they provide the receptacles for. I guess that's it. Any questions?
I'm curious, how often do they pick up?
It's on whenever they monitor it as needed.
Oh, they wait for one of the big receptacles to be full?
Right, it's a few
okay.
times a week. So yeah, it's a few times a week. It depends how busy we are. They monitor that and pick up so we never have an issue.
Sounds like there's a capacity gauge warning light when it reaches 90%.
Yep.
They become aware of it.
And it's a compactor too, so it's not just a normal dumpster, along with grease, what's the word I'm looking for? Grease receptacles out in our dumpster area, not grease, compost. Compost receptacles and of course recycling.
Yeah. And our recycling numbers versus waste are really good at the airport. We've done really well, better than statewide. So.
Well, that's good.
All right, commissioners, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. We move on to item 5.2. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to approve an increase of available airport taxi cab queue permits from 60 to 90.
I'll move that.
Moved by Helen, second by Greg. Discussion, Nick, if you can lead that, and then Paul, if you'd like to chime in after Nick, that would be great.
Great, so just a little bit of background on both the authority of the airport commission, which generally is only to approve taxi queue permit increases, is the authority of the airport commission. As well as the logistics of purchasing and going through queue permit requests and permit applications at the airport. So Paul Hines is here, of course. Paul has been really instrumental along with the rest of the board. I know Eunice is one of our taxi drivers, also sits on the board and very invested in these conversations. If you recall, a few months ago, I met with Eunice to rearrange and change signage with Hannah and the team to make sure wayfinding to the queue line and the taxi system is a little bit more clearer from a passenger experience perspective. From a queue permit perspective, to operate out of the Lake Airport, you need a queue permit. To get a queue permit, first you need a Burlington city license through the board and the city of Burlington. That's a prerequisite to a queue permit. Currently, we sell 50 of those queue permits at the airport, with struggles and challenges of quantity of drivers available, specifically at various times of the day, more specifically the times of the night. We really need an additional number of drivers. There are additional conversations happening on how do we incentivize, how do we change the program to really incentivize more drivers in particular times, as well as additional technology that we would allow access to our queue lane, which is the furthest lane outside of our front terminal building. The authorization granted by the Burlington Code of Ordinances does grant the airport commission the authority and through this ordinance to increase the number of queue permits. We did raise the number of queue permits approximately 8 or 9 years ago. And that was, again, it was a raise, an increase of permits up to this 60 number that we currently sell today. As the memo states there, we sell 60, the wait list currently is about 50 and sometimes over 50. So increasing this number is really critical to allow more drivers and small business owners and operators to access the airport and use the facility along with our passenger experience. We want to make sure we have that availability. It's also really important to share, and I don't want to speak too much for Paul, so I'm going to hand it right over to him in just a second. Paul and the board also wrote a modernization memo, which does address many items that I'll let Paul go through, but there's a specific section specific to the airport. Not only raising the number of queue permits was a recommendation, but also the accountability of those queue permits. We're seeing permits being shifted, permits being moved, and if folks aren't using it, or if an operator, owner, or driver is not using those queue permits, we need to address some additional authorities that the commission might have, or operational authorities that even I might have to make changes with queue permits, meaning revocation of queue permits and reassigning them to somebody else on the waiting list that is very much eager to operate here. So my request to you today is, of course, your motion there is to increase the number of queue permits sold from 60 to 90. And I'll hand it over to Paul Paul still, if he wants to. Oh, sorry, yes. I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Hand over to Paul.
Fair enough. Thank you, Nick. Paul?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with y'all. I just as a quick context on how this bring up, I'm a fairly frequent flyer out of the airport, and I am the kind of an office lead for a company, for a Vermont office of my company called Energy Hub. And a lot of people come in and out it's kind of become the Vermont retreat center for our local for the company. And as a result, like, a lot of people are coming in and out, taking taxis, getting, from the airport to their hotels and things like that. And, universally, the experience has not been very good with the taxi system, to be frank. I've had a number of occasions where I've shown up, my flight's a bit late, show up after midnight, and there are no taxis available. And so I've either had to beg a ride from somebody or call my wife in the middle of the night or whatever. And that's not ideal. And, I had one circumstance where I arrived, there were no taxis, waited for about almost 45 minutes. And then we got one, but they charged like just a crazy amount. and there were two of us in the taxi, and the other woman didn't speak English. It was just generally not a great experience. And I really feel like, you know, a lot of travelers, the first experience they have with Burlington is the taxi system. And so it's important for us to make sure that that's a positive experience. I think, so just to kind of highlight a few things that we've outlined in the memo, I think the rates are lower than what we see across the region. And so we're going to have to look into the rates. And so that's on our, on the taxi or the vehicle for hire boards remit. So we'll be working on that. But just as a forewarning, that's something that you'll probably see. We are going to look at an alternative to conventional metering. Conventional taxi meters are expensive. They're hard to maintain. We can't do it's not easy to do things that change based on time of day with a conventional taxi meter. And so we're going to look at a mobile app based solution for metering where customers can verify, what the charge is. But I think the thing is that from that we'd like to do collaboratively, if and when we're able to develop something, is to make sure that customers know that there's a new system, make sure that customers know the rates, and make sure that customers expect the driver to use the system, because currently almost none of the taxi drivers are using the meter in the queue. And it's this weird thing where like you show up and you have no idea how much you're going to be charged, and it's sometimes like kind of a bizarre amount. So that kind of gets to my third item, which is driver education. We'd like to, as we move along in this process, work with you all to develop some better signage at the airport. And the city will also be sending out some better communication to drivers to make sure that they know what their obligations and responsibilities are. And I really appreciate you addressing the issue of permits. The fact that some of us are waiting after midnight without a ride home, but yet there are 50 people in the queue not able, who would like to help with that circumstance, seems like a fairly easy win. And so I would definitely like to see how we can get more drivers out there, particularly in the late night hours. And so addressing the queue seems like a good first step in that direction.
And I agree. I think Paul and the board and the team has really educated myself and the team at the airport to make sure we're headed in the right direction. But I like the words that Paul used. I think this is a good first step. I think for us, allowing additional queue permits to be sold here is of course very important as a first step, but we really need to incentivize. We need a new program to incentivize people so that there isn't 50 people in the queue at midnight. And how to do that, we're trying to group not just with the airport industry outside of our state, but also around the country. There's really fascinating programs that are out there. There's great technology, which is really exciting to hear that the Vehicle for Hire Board is looking at that technology for metering systems. And there's technology at airports for access control and availability of coming in, maybe at a reduced rate during certain times of day to increase that incentive to be here. So those are kind of the short-term goals of creating a better system, specifically here at the airport, in conjunction with all of Paul's work downtown. And I do want to just say too, for any listeners, for the board to understand that there is a complaint process that the city does have. So if rates are being gouged, if there's not, if there's not certain things that are being offered, there is a website, there is information available online. That doesn't come to us anymore. It used to be at the airport commission level, but things got rearranged a few years ago. That doesn't come to us anymore. So there are complaint processes for members of the public to go through if there are concerns, specific with a driver, to cleanliness, to rates.
Go ahead, Alan.
How much of the $500 does the airport retain?
All,
All of it?
yes,
So that funds the processes that we have in place.
that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And that rate hasn't changed since I've been here, in almost 11 years.
Can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead, Jeff.
During those times when there's no taxis available, like are the rideshare apps like a viable option?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Basically after about 11 o'clock, I've not yet seen availability of Uber or Lyft. They are available. You see people downtown, they work sort of okay during daylight hours, but almost no one is driving Uber and Lyft late at night.
And that's very consistent with what we're hearing and seeing directly at the airport too. Not, and I would add too that I think there's less drivers on the Uber and Lyft worlds right now too. I don't know if that's consistent with what you're hearing and seeing too, Paul, but I think all around it is, but certainly at those midnight hours.
Yeah. It was actually interesting. We had a discussion, Eunice is a taxi driver, and he said a lot of the people who are sort of new Americans do not sign up for Uber and Lyft. They feel like that system doesn't necessarily treat them very well. But there is an opportunity in the taxi system. And so it seems like there's more people who are wanting to drive through the taxi system. And if that's the case, then I feel like let's figure out how to do it really well.
So you have all the information, you have your authority to do this. Of course, you have Paul's and the board's modernization memo, which is highly detailed, really good. And that is our request for you today.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments on this topic? Go ahead, Greg.
I agree that it makes sense to increase the number of permits. I'm a little concerned that the larger issue isn't being addressed, and I don't think that it's I don't think it's the airport staff responsibility to address that, especially the way that it's set up. You just don't have that authority. And I'm just wondering if there's some way that you and the staff can bring this to the attention of city council I just searched the board of code of ordinances and I couldn't find anything that specifies what those requirements are, other than that you need to get a license. And for just opening it up to more people without clearly identifying the possible harm that could occur, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm just hoping that the second half of this can be addressed in some way that makes sense.
And you're talking specific about incentivizing our lack of availability after a certain hour, or?
I'm more concerned about the requirements or lack thereof for people who are in that queue. There's no signage. I can tell you a story. I don't want to get bogged down into it, but got a ride from someone after midnight, same sort of situation. There wasn't really anyone there, and it was really dark. It was misty out. You couldn't really see who had permits. I was just glad there was someone there, but and I wasn't that. And yeah, there was no meter. The guy said, "Where are you going?" Gave me the price. He could have said 4 times that price. I probably still would have taken it. Right. But I'm more worried about someone, someone that may not feel comfortable getting into that type of a situation. The taxi cab was completely dark. Right. I mean, there were no interior lights.
Was it clean? I mean, cleanliness is another issue.
I couldn't tell. It was
It
completely
was so
dark.
dark.
it was so dark, and I had just called a cab. And so I said, well, I better do the right thing, call the cab company, tell them that I got a ride from someone, did that, put my phone down, and it was so dark that when we got off, I left my phone in the guy's car.
Yeah.
And luckily, I got on my iPad and tracked my phone, and the guy was coming back here to the airport, sort of met him there. He saw me, he recognized, he immediately gave me my wallet, and everything was secure. The phone and the wallet was in there. He was a super nice guy. He was a recent American from Kenya. I was talking to him about that, but I wasn't concerned about it, but I'm just like, my wife would have freaked out.
Yeah.
That's all I.
So this is definitely on our agenda as a part of this overall modernization. One of the reasons I'm interested in a mobile app-based solution is that would provide kind of a breadcrumb tracking if that you would know in advance how far you're going, how much that's going to cost. And there's also some, there's GPS coordinates, so where the car went. If the car went really to the wrong place, at least police would have a record of where it went. That's not perfect, but at least people would know that there's somebody watching. And safety and cleanliness definitely are. So there is in the ordinance, and I don't know the numbers, but there is a like a passenger bill of rights that has some rules about this stuff, but honestly, those rules are not being enforced or followed. And so, it's on the vehicle for hire licensing board to work with city council to try to figure out how we can update those rules and get them enforced.
And Paul, are you also working on, some of the requirements of what drivers are supposed to have inside the car, whether it's the Bill of Rights, where you find the Bill of Rights, to what standard taxi rates are, and rate obligations, whether it's at the airport or otherwise. Are you also working on that on the board?
Yeah, that's part of this modernization. So signage and driver education, sort of what information needs to go where is on our agenda.
Can I,
Yeah, go ahead.
what's the time frame for adoption of these ordinances that will clean it up and bring it into the 21st century? Do you know?
I know that like the purchasing process is not as fast as we might all want it to be. And so for developing the replacement for meters, for example, that's probably going to take us 6 to 9 months, maybe. If hopefully less than that. The updating the rates, I hope that we'll do that actually sooner than that. But then how we're going to get the meters to change the rates is a little unclear. But I expect we'll update the rates soon. I expect we'll probably come back to the airport with some requests for signage soon, in the next couple months, probably. So anyways, somewhere between the next month and the next 9 months.
Thank you.
You said something too earlier, Greg, about the making sure city council is aware and whatnot. So of course, this memo and the work that Paul and the board does goes directly to city council. And from my experience, and I bet you Paul will say the same, there are many city councilors that are highly engaged in not just the airport conversation, but the overall conversation to make these changes. And of course, I don't want to speak for you, Paul, but it's been my experience through the process.
Yeah, I've been working pretty closely with Mark Barlow, who's on the transportation committee. So I think the transportation committee is going to take this up shortly, and so other folks are working on it.
Commissioners, any other discussion? All right, I have a few points just to go over. Are there any potential unfavorable consequences of expanding the number of permits? You know, have we asked any of the current 60 permit holders how they feel about this going to 90, or have a sense of any concerns they might have?
One of them is a board member on the vehicle for hire committee, which has recommended the increase. I think one of the consequences that I can think of is currently potentially happening now, which is folks purchasing a Q permit and not using it. And that is a concern that I have too. We don't have the tracking or method yet or procedures yet to make sure that every Q permit that we sell is routinely operating here. And that's also, I believe, one of the recommendations in the Paul and board's memo is to track that and to revoke those licenses and give it to the next person in the queue of the Q permits.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm talking specifically about concerns of going from 60 to 90. Not like, I understand exactly what you just said, but are there any concerns of the people who hold those permits currently about an expanded number of permits?
Like they won't be able to make enough money? It'll be.
Yeah, that kind
They
of,
won't get it.
because there's dilution in the number of people they
Yeah,
can pick
yeah.
up.
I do have heard from Eunice concerns that during sort of peak daytime hours, the queue for the driver queue can get kind of long. My hope is that I think part of what's going on there is that the experience is not great, and that rumor gets around pretty fast. And so people are finding other ways to get where they want to go. My hope is that if we upgrade the experience, there'll be more drivers, which will kind of move the queue along on other times better. But that's to be determined whether that's real or not.
So, yeah, because again, I'm generally supportive of this, but I want to just flush some of this out. Without really revamping or looking at the data of permits versus how many people actually come, it's possible that we expand the number of Q permits and there isn't a measurable increase in service, right? So I'm just curious, and maybe this is a little granular, but I like data, so I'm going to ask it anyway. Like, do we have a way to compare the holders of Q permits to how many of that companies, or if it's a single person, how many times they came to the airport to pick up passengers? Is that data that we can easily obtain?
No,
No.
we don't have that data. We don't collect the data. Our responsibilities on the front end of the airport are both security related, customer service related, and so manually tracking every vehicle and queue number that comes through here is not something that we can do every single day, every hour. However, if we go to a digital system, that is probably something more important. Maybe it's a phased approach where literally the sticker that we sell, which is what the Q permit is right now, that goes on the side of the car, maybe that is a digital sticker of some sort that scans as you go by automatically. Because I agree with you, we don't have the data, nor have we ever had the data that I'm aware of to really look at these numbers.
Okay.
So I think all of those things that you're talking about are plausible concerns.
Okay, because so then the underutilization of the existing permits is more anecdotal than anything we can measure.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, I think I have a question. And then regarding the signage issue. So I guess, Paul, this is more for you, that I think most people will probably have their dissatisfaction with the service towards the end of their journey as opposed to the start.
Mm-hmm.
So You know, like, I'm just curious what, you know, because we could put signs up, you know, here at the airport, like, if you have a bad ride, call whatever, go to this website, and no one's gonna make a note of it, right? They're gonna get in and then they're like, oh my God, what was that number again, right? So is that what you're talking about, Paul? Like there'd be some kind of signage inside the vehicle? And if so, how would that be enforced?
So I'm still not sure on enforcement. I think that's honestly one of my big question marks is how do we enforce these things? But I do like the idea of putting signage inside the vehicle. That seems like an appropriate thing. I do think that signage at the airport could help a bit, just so that people know. Like honestly, I rode taxi for a long time, had no idea that there even was someone to complain to if things went wrong. So, you know, just some awareness of the rules, and if drivers know that passengers know what the rules are, that I think that could help a little bit. But I agree that like both signage at the airport and signage in the vehicle would be helpful.
Those things, signage at the airport, we can make immediate. So we, you know, when we have a recommendation, just like we work with Unison, we can make signage changes left and right almost immediately, both from, well, considering all of this conversation, we can do that next week if we needed to.
Okay, great. I guess my just final comment will be, you know, at $500 a permit, 30 more permits is 15,000 a year, and it'd be great if we could use that $15,000 to invest in technology so we can see who's coming here and doing what. And I do think that we should be looking into a process of revoking permits or not renewing, depending on the severity, for lack of, you know, visits to the airport. Right.
It seems like it might be helpful too, to incentivize and also either augment or limit the times for your permit. So you don't have 35 cars in a row in the middle of the day when everyone likes to drive, and 2 at midnight.
Right.
But either you incentivize the midnight crowd or somehow.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the technology piece. You work, and maybe you can charge more at midnight. I mean, that could be an incentive for someone to say, well, yeah, I'm gonna stay up because I can make more money. I don't have to work as many hours, and that serves the public better.
I agree with what you're saying, and there are a couple of conversations that we've had internally where maybe we do only sell 45 permits from midnight to noon and 45 permits from noon to midnight. Those are your time slots. I don't know what the authority of the ordinance is right now to do something like that. And then on your second point of incentivizing a lower cost to operate here during certain times of day. Right now, our transportation network companies, Uber, Lyft, they get charged per pickup and drop off. So is this something that we can also institute as part of a queue permit system where you might get charged, let's say $2, which is what Uber and Lyft gets charged, $2 per pickup and drop off during 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and only $1 after those time periods, to do exactly what you're saying, to you know, to do exactly what you're saying. That technology piece, I think, is going to have to come with time and research.
Oh, sure. You have to
infrastructure improvements.
know what the baseline is.
You got it.
You don't know that yet.
Commissioners, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries. We move on to 5. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks all. Take care.
We move on now to item 5.3. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to recommend that the city council approve an amendment to the existing contract with Jacobs Engineering Group for the North Concourse Replacement Project.
I'll move it.
It's moved by Helen. Second by Greg. Discussion to be led by Nick and Larry.
Okay, approximately, well, a year ago, we came asking for authorization to move forward with the 30% design by Jacobs Engineering Group for the next project, the North Concourse Replacement Project. And a couple months ago, you saw what it's looking like and how we're moving forward. So now it's time to move into final design bid, or well, we hired a construction manager at risk, which they'll bid the project to multiple subcontractors. This money is for final design and construction oversight all in one ask here. It's been through all the review process required by the FAA. Jacob has done a great job for us. In comparison, we typically see for engineering, design, and construction service in a range of 18 to 25% in total. We're just recently working a lot with GSA. They plan 45% of their engineering services for design and construction, which I can understand why. But this is based about 10 or 12% for the entire project on the cost of the project. So I think we're getting a bargain, and even our discussions with an engineer today, we anticipate even the construction services, our resident project representative will be less, as we did with the TIP project, or we monitored that closely, and we only allowed so many hours a day because it's not like watching other types of projects when a building's going up. So this will finish the project. This will get us pricing, and this will get us to a grant application by early next year. And also this will get us that oversight assistance we need during construction of that project.
One of the big things that have, like Larry was saying, that have changed since we had our architects in here presenting the full project is we did go out to bid. We did the design work that you've approved in the prior authorization. That all went out to bid, and now we're able to say that we selected this construction manager, which has been selected as Engelberth Construction. And so now Engelberth is on site, and that's why we're bringing this additional contract to you, so that Jacobs and now Engelberth can continue concurrently together to finish this design. Like Larry said, Engelberth is going to be going out to all of their subs later in the year. We're going to be back to you a couple more times throughout this process. One, this is, of course, designing the rest of the project, but we still need authorization for the grant. We're still going to be coming back for the Engelberth contract, which I am pleased to say that the Engelberth did bid $0 for pre-construction services, meaning everything from here until a guaranteed maximum price, they are not going to charge us today. Of course, that'll probably carry through into a guaranteed maximum price as part of the construction contract. And that will come back to you as well. That will be much closer to 60-70% design, maybe a little bit further along with the grant authorization and acceptance requests. We're making significant progress. Of course, we're going through additional checklists with the FAA. We're going through many different financial checklists to make sure that this is not only in line with the $34 million that has been appropriated for the project, but also in line with our passenger facility charge program, which will cover the local share of the project, as well as any ineligible costs, which there will be some ineligible costs, mostly related to the office and non-public space. Let me rephrase that. Security area public space, which is generally the only area that the FAA pays for. So there's other smaller spaces and the third floor observation area that will not be fundable. But we have very grant fundable. But we have very creative ways to represent that in future meetings. Today, what we're asking for is a large contract with Jacobs Engineering. But again, like Larry said, very consistent and analyzed by independent fee analysis to make sure that it's consistent, not just with market design contracts, but also with FAA requirements.
It gets us the pricing to get the grant to move to construction. So.
And this does also include not just the new building that we're so excited and have been for some time, but this also includes renovation of this entire second floor, and besides the spaces that we already just renovated, as well as new jet bridges, and really making sure that the flow from our new building, the tip building, all the way to our next building.
All right, commissioners, any comments or questions? Go ahead, Greg.
Jacobs was the group that gave us the presentation last time.
Correct.
Very impressive. I can't remember because I was just so engrossed in the visuals, if they've done something like this before.
Outside of this airport.
Yeah.
Jacobs is really kind of a worldwide, but mostly United States known airport terminal design company. They've done massive buildings at Denver, all the way, all over the country.
Yeah. And secondly, just want to have clarity in terms of something that Larry mentioned. He said that we can't really get the grants until we deal with this contract. Is that correct?
Correct. We do not apply for a grant for construction until we have hard bid numbers.
Makes
The way it works.
And typically the FAA requires a full design to happen all the way to 100%. And that full design obviously goes out to bid. We have a contractor that bids on it, and we select the contractor most appropriate for the project. Then we apply for the grant. In this project, we're going as a construction manager at risk. So that's why Engelberth is with us at only 30% design. And they're going to get us to around 70 to 80% design, and then come out with a guaranteed maximum price. That guaranteed price, that goes into the grant application. So we don't necessarily have to design it up to 100%. So we're going to get the grant much earlier than we typically do. And there's no savings necessarily, but from a cash flow perspective, we don't have to spend that 20%, for example, to get to 100% design before the grant actually comes in.
And there's no surprise with a design bid, you open the pricing and there's $10 extra million there, and you have to start value engineering, which is really cutting stuff. So this, we can control that.
That's where the savings come in, because now the Engelberth construction manager comes in, helps design this project, and finds the best way, the best pricing for the project on every single corner. So there is no surprises. We know what the cost is going to be. It's very, very much upfront.
And we're totally confident that the FAA will fund it.
Yes.
It's congressionally directed spending, money's already appropriated.
Okay.
Yeah, of course, that's 90%.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a great question, right? Because sometimes
I know, well, this is a lot of money just to spend, and then have your fingers crossed that you're gonna get the
Yeah.
So it's appropriated, it's federally appropriated, it's congressionally directed spending, but of course, that's all in the legislative language. But more importantly, it's in the national plan for the FAA, specifically with our name on it, $34 million.
It's in our CIP where they're
In our CIP, and FAA joins us on every single meeting that we go through, so they know just as much as we do about what's coming down.
And the funding for the FAA is not general fund appropriation, is it? It's from fees and things?
From airport fees.
Airport fees?
That's right, the super fund
So
comes from taxes from airline tickets.
So the case before the Supreme Court could really screw this up or not. The
Santa Clara case?
yeah, the one with the money that you, whatever it is, that's not PayPal, but what is it called?
Oh,
When poor people go and get a loan,
Oh, like payday loans?
payday loans, and they're at this, and the payday loan people are challenging whether you can have that sort of, not off the book, but things like, I think, the FAA, Medicare, all sorts of things, all sorts of stuff that we all use that isn't really appropriated. It's gathered through fees and costs, and it's earmarked for these kinds of projects. And if the Supreme Court goes with payday, apparently, because people are afraid it would just blow it all up. Which would be, just sort of this 50-year or 100-year process of, yeah, we set aside money from like banks and stuff for the Federal Reserve. That's not tax dollars. That's the bank fees. We all pay them, but not through our income tax. So it just was sort of interesting to think about. So, and the FAA would be one piece of that, I think.
I am unfamiliar with that, so
Yeah.
I definitely would want to do more research on it.
Let's get it built before they get a decision.
That's right. Yeah, one, it's certainly. Be appealed, but it's one of those, you don't go think about it, and then the Supreme Court makes some.
Yeah.
Cockamamie decision,
Penn versus PayPal, California case law.
yeah.
Hmm.
But I was just, listening to
We can check into that.
the impact,
FAA, maybe it's a different academic.
Yeah.
well, it's just where you're funding.
Yeah, we will.
Like
We
we
will
all
get-
pay into Medicare.
Right. We have never been given any indication from FAA or our federal legislators about looking into that case. It's the first time hearing of it.
Oh.
So,
Well, it's not your case until they
right,
make a decision that might have a cascading effect. It's only about PayPal.
gotcha, but the precedent that
But
it
they're
sets.
arguing, the precedent is, yeah, and then the people who are arguing against are saying, this could means a lot of really big programs.
Interesting.
So it's just interesting. Have to be careful with that.
So, any questions?
Just so when we just broader perspective, when we talk about the $34 million, if that's all presumably 10% local share, where is our 3.4 million going to come from?
Right, it's a little bit more than 3.4%, it'd be closer to 3.9-ish%. So most of that would come from any eligible portion would come from our passenger facility charge program.
Okay.
So that would go into a different process, different grant application. Well, it's not called a grant application, but a different process through the FAA to make sure that our recovery of passenger facility charges can't reimburse ourselves for the 3+ million.
And we have enough passengers to
Yeah,
cover that.
that's right. Yeah, so we usually get around 2.8 million per year,
2.6, 2.8, depending on the year.
depending on the year.
Yeah.
On a good year.
Yeah.
And those are directly from ticket sales.
And we can save that to use for these
We have to
kinds
do
of.
applications and.
Yeah, we just submit we put together an application. There are uses that we can go ahead and do that. Authorized uses of the PFC fund, and so we put that together.
Right.
Because you have to have the authority to collect, so we do the authority to collect, authority to use.
And from of course, that's from a budgetary perspective, and then from a cash flow perspective, that's one of the reasons why you see the healthiest cash balance that we've ever had at the airport, and that's only increased with closeouts of FAA grant projects. So when the FAA receivable number comes down, you're going to see between $6 and $10 million of cash in the bank to support the cash flow scenario of this project, which again is far higher. Today is far higher than we've ever had, but far higher, of course, when the final FAA reimbursements are paid.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Commissioners, any further discussion? We'll call the question.
Yeah.
Greg so eloquently put it. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries unanimously. We move on to item 6, which is the construction update from Larry.
All right, really don't have much to add. I did do this report a little bit early, so it's been a couple of weeks because of the way Nick wants to time things now moving forward. So I didn't put any pictures in, but you basically for the major project, you're gonna see the same type of pictures you saw last month. We're wrapping up the runway or taxiway Alpha Milton overlay. This next Sunday and Monday night, they'll do the final lift of pavement. That's the goal, depending on weather. And then clean up the week or so after that, and that project will be complete. We're just finishing the north renovation, which everybody should check out because it's awesome compared to how those
it's
people
very
were
cool.
Yeah.
parked
With that
back in there. Yeah.
dome, that's
Yeah,
very neat.
It's gonna be even nicer. So
Yeah.
we had that other project to it. Anyway, so anyway. Okay, and also you'd see the same pictures down in what Helen saw when those doors opened down at Beta was like a lot of gravel. So a lot of excavation has been happened down on the South Apron project. The stormwater infrastructure has been put in place, and they'll be starting to bring in the sub bases. And based on what we know right now, because of we hit a little bit more rock for the storm drain piping within the footprint of the apron. It's a little bit delayed, so we probably won't pave this year. And we did pave what Beta needs for the winter, should they start moving planes in and out of there. So that's already done. It was part of the whole ceremony. They had a plane in there and we're able to get it in and out. So that'll be taken care of. But the really good news is sound insulation. We started that this week. Contractors are out there. We've got pictures. We just got them today though, of the, windows coming out and a wall board going up, and that's huge. Oh, he's gonna get them up now. So that started on Monday. That the first phase 1 and phase 2. Oh, that's a whole nother report. Sorry. But that started this week. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions about anything else that I have put in here.
Commissioners, any questions or comments? Good, great.
Larry, I don't know if this falls into a construction question, but when we were talking about the taxi queues, it was mentioned the possibility of some signage in that area, and that's something that could take place relatively quickly, depending on day-to-day issues that are on the front burner. I'm wondering, is that something that would fall into your realm? And
Well, I work Hannah on that. She takes charge of the signage and stuff like that. And Jeff now too, now that we have Jeff on board. But all facilities related stuff in the past several years is, if there was a requirement to get product or bid or whatever, yes, I would take care of that.
So a great example is the new asphalt that we just poured for the entrance. There's a little bit more happening on the sidewalks and
Next couple of weeks.
another entrance that's Larry and his department.
Yeah, my department, yeah.
That's it for that. Which is Kirk Patch that you've met.
Right, he's picking up on a lot of that type of stuff that I was doing, fencing, the lighting project, the bar, all that stuff. So I have helped get that done now.
With wayfinding, signage, the customer experience side of things, that really falls on Jeff Bartley and Hannah.
is there any way that we can identify that as something that possibly could take place by the end of the calendar year, or?
New signage for
Yeah.
taxi?
Yeah.
Oh, easily. It contingent on what signage we put up. So we just put a couple $1,000s worth of new signage for the taxi wayfinding, all the way from baggage claim and all the way to the exits over here and the exits upstairs. And we also transformed a couple of the signage for Uber and Lyft and made sure the split was appropriate, and flags, that type of thing. So, and the reason I say that contingent on what signage, because if the rates change recently, I think that's a very important sign to put up.
Right.
But I mean, the things like visit this website if you would like to file a complaint, those aren't gonna change, and I think we can work something out.
Good, thank you.
maybe
One
even
other,
before the next meeting.
one other quick note, whoever took those speed bumps out of the rental car area, I'm
Thank
happy.
you, I
I'm
know.
happy for that.
Yeah, going up to where we
Yeah.
drive, it wasn't.
The
Well,
the last one.
don't be too happy.
The
because
last one
it
is
shouldn't
so-
be like
Those people need speed bumps, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
Right.
Oh,
We'll look into that.
Yeah, well, we can.
The first two. And blew it. I'll withdraw.
You wish they were back.
I find it very
maybe
helpful.
we can find a more reasonable speed bump.
Well, they're weirdly positioned,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and they were very all
They
like
were?
skinny, so
Yeah.
popped your vehicle up. Yeah.
All right, Commissioner, anything else for Larry?
Oh, no, just one, so, and I can't remember where it was, whether it was at the community meeting or if this was just a South Burlington City Council, but people have complained about the signage of where you turn in to get into the airport. And I always have to creep along, because
Oh, I know,
in the
I read that.
past,
I
I
read
had
that.
pulled into the
On
wrong
the
place.
pavement, on the pavement.
Yes, on the,
pavement.
this side,
Yeah.
yeah.
On the
there's-
pavement also, the markings, I read something somewhere.
Yes.
But the airplane, the painting and all that was a markings thing,
We just
Yeah.
painted that a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago.
so maybe that's.
But there is a new entrance, well, not new, but an entrance that goes into the Beta building and into one of our maintenance
Right,
jobs.
that's one, and
Yeah.
it was so confusing,
Yeah.
because you don't really see the entrance into the airport.
Well, you might be the perfect person for us to ask about that, because we're gonna need to go to you and the development review board to
Oh,
make sure
great.
we can
Yeah.
add the additional signage.
Yeah, but it just was raised since we were doing school things and,
Also,
signage.
Helen, you should, the fencing should be in next week for the cemetery too.
Oh, good, okay.
So, and also there'll be trees potentially going out the end of this week or probably early next week that go along with that whole project. So it was a long lead item, but hopefully by November that'll all be installed.
Wow, maybe rest.
It's like,
Just getting it straightened out that one along the
Take a
road.
break.
That's the whole limit.
That's right, or hold up
Right,
house.
that's right.
Go ahead, Brent.
Hi, everyone. I agree. I was noticing that the line striping on the pavement as you approach the entrance has faded, and so I don't know if that's been updated in the last, month or two, but that was something that I had noticed as well recently.
So we don't paint in the road. South Burlington does,
yeah.
but we do have a portion of that we can make sure we address, like the picture of the airplane, which we paint on the ground, that is something that we do with permission. But
We can reach out to South Burlington too. and
Yeah,
figure
because we
it
just
out.
repainted our entire front driveway.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, so
Yeah, it's just,
I can reach out to South Burlington.
Just a question on, so now that the North Concourse the glass has been bumped out, is there a timeline for? We had talked in the past about Skinny potentially expanding their seating. Is there a timeline for that?
Yeah, so we added some temporary traditional seating that you see around the rest of the airport, not only in that area, but we also opened up our 2 administration offices ago, our admin space that we had in the hallway over here. That's now opened up to the public and available as like a small lounge area. So between that space, which has some additional seating, and then the restaurant space. So I do just want to be clear that the restaurant lease area and the space is not changing. And I'm not gonna bring that back to the board or to city council as an amendment to their lease space. But we are working with Skinny Pancake to identify different seating options that the airport would participate in as well.
So their sort of official footprint is not expanding.
That's correct.
So it's possible that their patrons will take their food and find other places to sit.
In a shared use space. That's exactly right. More comfortable space.
Okay.
And some of that will look like a restaurant. Skinny Pancake does want to invest some materials into that space, whether it's additional booths, traditional restaurant booths adjacent to the new open space, as well as more of a cafe style lounge space that we're partnering with them on. But their official lease will not change.
All right, commissioners, any final thoughts on the construction update? All right, thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the financial update from Marie.
Very good, thank you, Tim. So in front of you, you've got the August profit and loss, we've got August revenue recovery metrics, banking balances, and the AIP. So everything is from the same month of August. So we're just internally, we're getting our reports done and for review and stuff internally earlier. So I do them about a week and a half, 2 weeks before the meeting now. So it will always be the month prior. So the reports are pretty much as I expected. And one notable is we did have a GAN balance on AIP 143, and we did pay that off in early September. We're talking about the PSC application. Any interest that we pay on a GAN, grant anticipation note, is eligible if we choose to, which we have. Put in that next application that we do under PSC, so we can get reimbursed for that interest, which is really benefits all the way, especially when I'm waiting on pretty big amounts. Let's see, year-to-date revenues through August for $4.8 million. So that's for the first 2 months. They're just slightly higher than the prior year, but we saw during the years of recovery during the first couple of years of COVID, we saw some pretty great jumps. We're still seeing very strong revenues. Our parking garage revenues are consistently above and beyond from year to year, which is great. I think I was looking at the concessions just here sitting, and I think I may have pulled some number, not pulled enough number, but our revenues are strong and they're good. Our expenses for the year are a little bit higher, but as I've been expressing, we got this pretty big repairs and maintenance project that we're doing. The lighting is all being replaced, the fire alarm. It's going to take longer than a full year. The whole project, about 18 months. It's going on in the garage. So they started that in May. So we had some expenses last year, but we're going to see a lot of expenses this year, and we'll continue into the future in fiscal year 2025 to finish up that project. So that's sort of impacting why we're seeing the expenses being higher compared to last year. Also, due to some contractual things and just filling of positions, we are also seeing higher salaries and the associated just insurance and things like that. Nothing that I'm concerned about, just these were things that were planned. And our cash balance at the end of August was again very strong, about $6.6 million. We did not owe the city any money. And those are very quickly, we continue on our recovery metrics. Everything is above 100% compared to where we were prior to COVID, with the exception of our PFCs. We chatted about the PFCs a little bit. Those are tied specifically to employments. And so we are 90-something% of our passengers where we were. So there's a little bit of timing. We get paid a month after the fact, a little bit more than a month after the fact. And it's for the ticket sales that were bought during that time frame. So not necessarily when people are actually flying, but it's whenever somebody buys a ticket, so if somebody buys a ticket in the month of August, but they're not flying until Thanksgiving, we'll get the revenue. But likewise, it's close, but it's,
You're pointing at me because I did that.
I don't know.
I am flying out in Thanksgiving.
Big brother is watching.
Yeah, I know.
I've been thinking about that.
Yes.
So that's how it works.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Thank you.
Bring your friends.
So that's the only revenue that we haven't seen hit 100% of the recovery, but everything else is quite strong and is helping our overall revenue. So I think those are good things to report.
Absolutely.
I will entertain any questions that anybody may have on all of this information.
All right, commissioners, any questions or comments for Marie? Ready, I think we're good. Thank you, Marie. I'm gonna move on from item 7 to item 8, which is community connection, and Hannah, you're up first with noise data.
We have 21 additional comments from last month. From our vector software program, predominantly military, on the comment by address map, the little heat map that we have, that's like an overlay of the runway. Still showing predominantly most comments coming from northern Burlington. And we also, this is the second month, I believe, that we've added the noise comment map that has the overlay of the noise contours from the noise exposure map. So it has the 65, 70, and 75 noise contour overlaid onto the noise comment, so you can get a good reference point from that. That's all I have.
It's interesting that so many comments are outside those lines. This, I mean, you'd think they'd be inside where they could really hear them more loudly or.
All right, hearing no further comments, we'll move on to item 8.
Just a
Right.
go ahead.
Oh, Brandon, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I am curious for the 21 that came in, do you have a tighter timeline of when those came in? If it was like the end of last week, it seemed like there was more activity Wednesday through Friday. Maybe last week before last, or if there was something within the last, if there was a tighter range that may have been an influence there.
I don't have it right in front of me, but I can easily
Okay.
pull it up and send you that information.
Yeah, that's okay.
For sure.
I also have had some folks ask me the best way to submit comments or complaints. And I've seen, I think, a couple phone numbers. I wasn't sure if there was a web form that I didn't have this one on BTV Sound, but maybe it's there.
Yes, so the form that we receive through the vector software is linked to the form on btvsound.com.
Okay.
So that's the best way to send in one over the website, and that's the one that we track. We include all the comments received, including phone comments as well, but that's the easiest way to submit a comment.
Okay. Yeah, and I think folks that I would talk to probably would prefer an online form or even being able to text a particular number. So it's good to know, but I also appreciate that there's a phone number that is still being maintained and that data is being incorporated into the web form submittal. So thanks for clarifying that.
Let me just clarify, there is no phone number that the airport maintains. This administration maintains. There is a phone number that the Air National Guard has. Those comments are not input into this data that we're sharing with you. Whatever goes to the Air National Guard, they collect and respond to.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the comment form is on our voice and flight tracking system, and there is not a cell phone text format, but a text form that you can submit on that tracking system, and that's the only information that we collect right now.
And you've tested that to see if it's mobile friendly?
It should, yes, it is, because I've done a couple of tests.
Okay.
Yep.
The contact phone number for our consultants, Jones Payne, on there. So if they reach out via phone and then have a comment, then they also relay it to us that way as well. But I would suggest to have anyone asking use the form that's listed on the website.
Okay, so just to make sure I have this clear while I'm taking notes, there's no phone number that BTV is maintaining. The guard has a phone number, but that phone number is, and that data, those complaints are not incorporated into this complaint data mapping. There is a web form on BTV Sound and it is mobile friendly. Is that right?
Yes.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
And we also share all of the noise information that exceeds a certain decibel level. That all is shared, the raw data is shared from the noise tracking system as well.
Yeah, I've looked that up. I've looked that up myself as well and noticed the time delay. So I've watched it myself.
That's right. There's a 10-minute time delay, which is a requirement of the FAA.
Yeah.
And then of course there is the raw data that we add to the website monthly, which is every radar track that hits a noise monitor over certain decibels will be recorded on a pretty significant spreadsheet.
Okay, thank you.
Right, commissioners, any other comments or questions? Oh, Greg, you had something.
Yeah, just curiosity, kind of the NEM color-coded contour map. Remind me, how do we, I mean, we must have something electronically that sort of captures the sound and determines those contours? Is that how it works?
So are you talking about the 3 noise monitors?
Yes,
That are collecting the data, or are you talking about the map?
I'm talking about the map,
Oh, okay.
So that is our noise exposure map.
the noise exposure map.
There is no monitor or microphone set up in the field to determine that noise map. That is a computer model noise map, which is the only map the FAA accepts and requires. Then we do have 3 noise monitors in the field. And that's what we're referring to with some of this raw data that we add to the websites. That noise information collected from those noise monitors are not used to produce this map, are not used. And there's no controlled way of using those noise monitor information. They pick up every noise, whether it's a police car to an aircraft taking off. So the scientific and the controlled process that FAA requires is the computer model, and each aircraft that uses this airport is selected and put into the noise map using real radar data, so we know which way they're going, and then using each aircraft's noise profile to put into the map. So no actual monitors are used for noise exposure maps.
Yeah, I mean, again, just an observation, I think Helen mentioned it earlier, the majority of the complaints are actually outside of the contours, or it's about even, and I understand.
Well, there just were a couple.
I understand that there's a couple that, you know, are the majority of the complaints. But just a quick observation, looks as if as many are outside of those contours as are inside the contours. And I don't know what that means, I'm just saying it's just an interesting observation.
And so for the noise contour of the military jets, that doesn't include the use of afterburners, does it? It's just
on this map, which this is the 2023. No, we're in 2023. The 2023 future forecast, which was approved by the FAA back in 2018-19. That does include a small percentage of afterburners based on the EIS and the International Guard's operations. The updated noise exposure map, which Larry will go through a little bit, will be just about the same. Although that's actually a great point. The EIS said that there would be less than 5% of the time using afterburners. Yeah. However, in the last year since the F-35s have been operating, it is significantly less than 1%. So this new noise exposure map will incorporate that less than 1% afterburner use. Again, confirmed with actual radar data and operational data.
All righty, just one quick question, the second map that's in here, that's like the Lime Kiln Road kind of area. Because there's not, I'm trying to get myself familiar with the roads and.
Which map?
It's the second BTV residential sound installation program map. Like the first one is the traditional South Bronx, you know, by the airport and the Chamberlain School that we've always seen, but it's the second map. Is
Oh, and
that-
Larry's report.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep, that's the north side of the airport, so that's Airport Parkway connecting to Lime Kiln.
Yeah, okay, that's right. I just wanted to be sure.
That's the Lime Kiln Bridge right there.
Yeah.
And Tim, there is one error on this, we're now calling, if you look at that, the legend on that sheet, the pilot program is now being called, the FAA asked us to simplify this, phase 1. Phase 1, group 1 is phase 2, and
That's.
phase 1, group 2 is phase 3. There's been three different projects, so we'll correct that. So,
Jones Bain Group is working on an update.
So the pilot program is phase 1.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
No more pilot, no more phase 1, group 1.
yeah,
Phase 1, 2, 3.
we're gonna keep it.
We're working on phase 4.
We're gonna phase 4, right?
All right, thank you. We'll close down item 8.2, move on to item 9, which is the director's report.
Perfect. I'm just gonna share my screen. Second, Bill. All right, so Larry talked a little bit about the sound insulation program, we just did too. Happy to report as of last week, we replaced our first window. These are just a couple
This
of
Monday,
tests.
this Monday.
Sorry, this week, yeah. So this week, we replaced our first window 2 days ago, and there's right now multiple houses that are undergoing these improvements. These are mostly on the South Henry Court and the Airport Parkway area right now. At the end of this calendar year, so just well, in about 6 to 8 weeks, will be completed with all 15 houses this year. In the spring, we'll be starting with 52 houses. Neenah Construction is the contractor.
Why don't we move on to the manager's
Jones
report?
King Group,
So I'll just highlight
who took
3
these
minutes. I'll
pictures and is there
try to take the
every
3
single
minutes.
day, along with myself and Larry and the team.
Why don't we move on to the manager's
Really
report?
making sure that
So I'll just highlight
not just the quality, but the consistency and experience of each one of these homeowners is top level.
We went out Monday morning, met with the first homeowner, and very nice, and we'll be closing 2 a week. With exception to punch list items will be followed up on after that, so that's the 15 homes over the next 8 weeks. And then next year, when we go into the 52, we'll try to move to 4 houses closed per week, finished per week.
And then when do we go back in to test to see if it actually works?
Pretty much right away.
Right away?
Yeah,
Okay.
so once everything's done, right now the windows and the doors are being put in. A lot of these also have interior walls, that'll be put in. And then they'll go back and do after action acoustical testing to make sure the interior is at or below 45 DNL.
And if it's not, what do they go back in and do a little bit more?
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
the experience, from what I understand, is that they never really had that problem with the engineering they've done in the planning, so
Right.
they've never had to go back, so.
But if they did.
If they do, they do.
We design and look at
Okay.
attic insulation.
What happened, yeah.
HVAC, additional utility installs as well. Another important piece to this is Vermont Gas Systems.
Yeah, I was just
And
gonna ask you.
Efficiency Vermont is also with us during each one of these projects.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not only helping with the cost of some of this construction, reimbursing us, the airport, as part of the local share portion of these grants. But they're also working with the homeowners to see outside of this noise program, is there anything else you're eligible for, whether it's a 0% loan on a new hot water system, or I always forget the heat pumps, or other programs that are available through my gas, efficiency Vermont, Green Mountain Power, the whole group of utility companies and groups are together.
That's great.
Really led by Vermont Gas Systems.
I would love to have it, you know, when we finish those, to see how many people take them up on that offer,
Yeah.
those offers.
We can track that. VGS has a lot of really great information, both that helped
Good.
us pre and
Uh-huh.
we can do a post. That's a good question. All right, just a little bit more on community engagement. We had a really great meeting a couple of weeks ago at the Chamberlain Elementary School. Ellen was
Yeah.
there with us.
Great,
What's
it's a
that?
very nice job.
Oh, thank
No, but it was. You did a good job, you know, I mean, it's a little testy, but you didn't rise to the occasion. So you passed that test. You didn't, yeah, you passed the test.
Control it.
It was an engaging conversation, and this wasn't just about this program. Our two primary focuses of this community meeting was to talk about our recreational path and our landscaping project and master plans. We're proposing to install this really elaborate and pretty exciting recreational multi-use path as part of requirements as any one of these construction projects that we're talking about, mostly related to the Project Next building, the hotel building, Beta's building, Heritage must have some things, SRE being its building, so vertical, all of those vertical construction pieces require a landscape program. And this is a really, what I think is a really thoughtful and great way of truly committing this land to recreational use and a noise buffer zone between residential and the airport zone. The other half of this conversation at this public meeting was updates to our noise exposure map. Larry, as part of his report, also has the noise exposure map timeline and schedule in there, which we shared with the community. This was really meant for the Chamberlain Elementary School updates, elementary neighborhood updates, just because of the location of this recreational path. We're going to be hosting these types of meetings much more frequently during this time frame of our noise exposure map update, including having some in various communities. We've already talked about and want to schedule in a O'Brien Center specific to the Winooski residents. All of this is all translated as well. The pamphlet in our website is translated into about 12 different languages, so that hopefully anybody can either request or access various brochures, which is what we have shown here. I thought it was a really engaging conversation. It was difficult at times. We did hear many comments related to noise, of course, and specifically F-35 noise. But again, our goal was to really communicate to the community this landscaping plan.
Did you get real feedback from the public about the actual path? I had hoped there would have been, you know, I mean, the F-35 crowd got everyone off in another bent, but it seemed to me one of the really big purposes for this in that community was to say, okay, this is where we think the path should be. What do you think?
Right. There were a couple of written comments because we did have poster boards around and post-it comments there, so we gathered that. We're gonna put that on the website. There were a few really good comments on the landscaping plan. One of them that sticks out to me was let's do a patch of wildflowers. Let's make it a little bit more natural in various locations, which is extremely helpful. Verbally, we had a lot of great conversations about the path. A lot of folks that literally live adjacent to the path that suggested, please don't put this path in between my house and another house. So we've adjusted that already. Others are part of this, which is just off the map here, I should have added it in there. Part of this is the community garden center over on Kirby Road. That was probably the most we talked about verbally with folks coming up to the front of the room. So I think there's a lot. There were, I didn't count, maybe 3 or 4 people that I had personal conversations with that live adjacent to this green space here that truly wanted a community garden, and they would use it quite frequently if it was available.
Okay. So it met your need.
I think so. I think it was
That's good.
a
That's
really
important.
great
Thank you.
feedback from the community.
Bryn just had a question about the recording.
There is a recording, Bryn, so we videotaped the entire meeting. It's not online yet, but it will be online shortly, the entire meeting.
Was that filmed through CCTV or town meeting TV?
It wasn't, no, we filmed it ourselves.
Okay.
But it's also available on town meeting TV.
I don't think it is.
Oh, not anymore?
No. Unless they take our video, which I'm not sure they did.
Because I've watched replays of this meeting.
Of the community.
The community, sorry.
She's talking about-
Sorry, yeah, the community meeting. My question was specific to the community meeting at Chamberlain.
Yeah.
I don't, we can share it with CCTV. I don't know if they're gonna wanna re-put it on there. That would be pretty amazing if they could.
Curious in terms of where I could self-serve and find it versus needing you guys to send it out.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. We can definitely engage with CCTV. And then we'll share that link as well, which will be on b2bsound.com.
Yeah, I had another public meeting that night, so I was unable to attend.
I didn't get you in the picture. I'm so sorry. I was looking at that early. We had a really great opening, Helen, the community, boy, there must have been hundreds of people there, mostly Beta employees. Beta opened up their brand new facility which is their manufacturing site, which if any of the commissioners would like a tour, I would love to arrange that for you. We had our amazing Mayor Weinberger there, and of course our federal delegation and our previous federal delegation, which he's actually putting me in a chokehold.
And the governor was there.
And the governor was there along with their incredible staff and had quite a few people. That was pretty amazing, spectacular to see. This picture does not do that hanger justice because it is a massive building.
And it's only half of it.
And it's only half of it.
Well, and Kyle's so tall.
So the perspective.
He had to have been the tallest person in that
Oh my gosh, yeah, you
room.
can see that.
Four.
And Senator Leahy is tall too, but you can see Kyle next to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so great congratulations to the Beta family, because that was a lot of hard work and a lot of hard work too, and commitment from the airport and the commission. We of course leased the land to Beta, so that's pretty amazing partnerships all around.
I thought one of the most interesting observations actually was by the governor, and his prediction was that Beta Technologies would have the same impact in Vermont as IBM did, however many years ago. What was that, 50?
50.
Yeah. And he may very well be right.
He said, mark my words.
Yeah, but I just thought that was kind of interesting, because, I certainly was here when IBM came in, and there was, a lot of back and forth about that.
Very exciting.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
We talk all about this. I always like to share. It's on boards all around the terminal. Jeff Bartley, who's online right here, is actually putting up some additional signage to share this with our passenger community. And we'll have some updates throughout the terminal. And you've seen these pictures, and we've talked quite a bit about it today, but always very exciting. And then I'll leave you with just a couple of upcoming events, and some accolades too. So I shared an email with the commission. We were listed with Vermont Business Magazine as one of the top 25 fastest growing entities in the state of Vermont. We were number 10 on the list, but it's pretty exciting. A picture with the team there, as well as the Secretary of Commerce and the president of the Key Bank. We're also in the running for the best small airport in the country by USA Today. I think I was talking to you earlier of how we got nominated, what the rules are for this. I did read the rules, which I put in that little clip there, Reader's Choice rules. It is really strict. So it's pretty amazing what's happening. Votes are closed, but people were able to vote. Readers were able to vote. We were able to vote quite often every single day. And votes are closed right now, but they'll be announcing the top 10 best small airports in the country on October 13th. So 2 Fridays from now. And we will most certainly share
Friday
that.
13th.
And I'm lucky the 13th. I don't have a date for you yet, but I will share it as soon as possible, most likely today or tomorrow, sharing it with you. We will have our new logo in celebration of the new Patrick Leahy Burlington International Airport. Most likely it will be in a couple of weeks, probably 2 weeks. And I will get that date to you ASAP. Very excited about that, and a lot of planning effort from Jeff to Hannah to Jillian to the entire team of making a really special day for the airport, for celebrating Patrick Leahy and celebrating our whole community. So all of you, of course, are invited, and we will be sending out formal invitations, most likely before the end of the week to a very large list of folks. October 12th, this is next Thursday, I believe, October 12th, is our first technical advisory committee meeting for our noise exposure map updates. We'll be doing that right here. This is our first one, so we're going to be talking a lot about what is a noise exposure map to the schedule moving forward. Our noise exposure map and that schedule is in the sound report on the previous agenda item. So we're excited to start this process and really kick off our noise exposure map process and then publish that, of course, next year. In November, and Jeff, you might want to talk about this just for a second there. November, we're going to be will be represented at a Lake Champlain Chamber Travel and Tourism Summit called Destination VTV. And Jeff Bartley, who's online there, is going to be speaking at that conference. Jeff, if you want to say a couple things about that.
Yeah, hello everybody. Yeah, I met with Hello Burlington today. They're putting it on. This is their attempt to try to bring the tourism industry together to both celebrate the end of really heavy season, going into a new heavy season with the holidays, but also compare notes and also spend some time learning from other communities on the eclipse that we are anticipating in April of next year. So really just opportunity to network. And they've asked me to present or represent what Nick has presented in the past about the future of the airport and all the good stuff that we got going on. So I'm looking forward to that.
Unfortunately, I'm not able to make it, but I know Jeff and the team will represent the airport really, really well. I've shared this with you before, but I'll be gone to London. We'll have another commission meeting before then, so I'll be able to talk to you before then. But I'll be speaking at the International Airport Summit, specifically about the constraints of a growing airport and passenger constraints in a too small terminal building, which I think we're one of those airports that are going through that. Of course, we're from a small hub perspective, and I'll be speaking with Budapest Airport, the Airport Authority of Hong Kong, as well as Chief Planning Officer for the federal airports of Nigeria, as well as Burlington International.
That's interesting.
So it's going to be a really interesting moderated session on us and international.
I'm flying to Budapest,
Oh, cool.
airport in a couple weeks. Going out.
Interesting.
Yes.
But I'm sure
I will, I'll check it out.
Brandon, I'm
And
sorry, Brandon, did you have something relevant?
Yeah, some folks had asked if the TAC meetings would be open to the public, like if they're gonna be similar to these meetings that are able for folks to attend.
yeah, they are open to the public, so anybody can attend, but the conversation will be with the TAC membership.
Yeah, and where will those be posted?
Most likely, right, yeah, most likely right here. You said hosted, right?
Posted, like where will the meeting information be posted?
Oh, it'll be on btvsound.com. I believe it's already on there, but we should make sure that it is.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last thing I have for you is for Dave, I'm putting him on the spot, and Stacy, but Dave, I know we just introduced Stacy, but if you can just introduce Stacy, and if you want to say it a couple of words.
Sure. Sorry, I got a little bit of a head cold, not head cold. Not contagious. Stacy is new operations manager. She's been with us for about 9 years now. About 9 years, operations specialist. I've worked closely with Stacy for the last almost decades, and yeah, she put in for it, and I think she's a great addition to the team as a manager, not just as a specialist. So far she's hit the ground running. So I'm really impressed with all that she's contributed so far.
Welcome, Stacy, as operations manager, and we are putting her to the test because literally, I think every single day somehow it goes to you that a fence is changing, a door is changing, the terminal is changing, something is added. So Stacy manages our airport security program as well as our certification manual with Dave and his team, which is not a small task. That is my report for you tonight.
Great. Commissioners, anything else for Nick on his report? All right, then we'll move on to item 10, Commissioner items. I didn't receive anything in advance, but is there anything? Oh, Brendan's got her hand up. Is there anything anyone wants to share?
I want to jump ahead of anybody else in the room.
Go ahead, Brendan.
2 items. I'm also on the Winooski Bridge Committee. And that is being facilitated by VTrans, primarily, and one of their consultants. We had the first public meeting for that. Oh my gosh, I think that was the 19th. At the O'Brien Center. It was really well attended. The room was packed, standing room only. There was also an online component to it. So there was about 45 people that attended online as well. There's a committee that they have convened. We're meeting about monthly. They expect the next public meeting to be in Burlington, probably in January. It's not scheduled yet. But looking at having some potential designs for folks to reflect on and respond to by that time. Construction probably starting as early as 2027. Hoping, I think the funds need to be spent by, I think maybe 2032, possibly. So pretty quick turnaround time. There will be a period of time where the bridge has to be closed to vehicle traffic. Right now, they're intending on having a portion open to bicycles and pedestrians while that vehicle traffic element is closed. Obviously, they're going to try and contain that to as a small amount of window, the smallest window of time as possible. And there will be lots of public outreach about that. But I wanted to make sure that This group was especially aware of that and looked into that timing. I don't know how much impact that may have to airport travelers, but wanted you all to have that have a heads up on that. Any questions that I can answer or try to answer? They have a really good website. I can drop that in the chat or share it with Hannah to share with the group as well.
Yeah, that would be helpful from our perspective at the airport, Brent, because one, it's gonna impact my commute, but also I think that's a heavily used area.
Say.
Yeah.
Well,
But it's also appreciated because it's absolutely needed. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing that's unrelated to the bridge, I had been notified that there was some questions about garage security recently. I believe somebody's car had been stolen from the garage, and I wanted to check in on that if there's been any additional procedures that have been reviewed or additional enforcement or security that's been put in place to help mitigate that.
Yeah, and I just want to preface it by saying that it's not just at the airport. There's a major challenge with auto theft in the entire county and beyond. I think Chief Burke had a really great statement said recently about South Burlington, but also Chief Merritt in Burlington. The biggest thing that we've asked our customers and added some signage in our garage is please do not keep your keys in your car and do not leave your car unlocked. Every theft, which there's been a few thefts of vehicles in our parking garage, every theft, the keys were in the car and the car was unlocked.
Or on the tire.
Or on the tire.
He didn't put it on the tire either, yeah.
Yeah. As far as procedures, we are aware of it. We have added additional security elements so that it's not as easily, the egress out of the garage is not as easily done, whether it's popping up over a curb or something like that. We have significant security cameras surrounding the exit lanes, entrance lanes, and various locations within the garage. Most likely we're going to be adding possibly additional resources to the garage. But again, don't leave. That's what our continued message is, and we share that message with the chiefs in the area.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and mainly as a way to help distribute any messaging to folks that I talk to about additional safety measures that they could take. So this is helpful.
Yeah, other than that, our garage sees thousands of vehicles a day in and out, and we have very few thefts compared to the overall operation of the garage.
Yeah, I'm sure. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other items for today? So we move on to item 11, which is follow-up items. So we talked about taxi queue permits today, so I think we can remove that. Commissioners, is there anything else that came up today that you would like to follow up on in next meeting or in future meeting?
We'll continue to follow up on the sound program, but that's what you're gonna do.
Yeah, I think that's embedded.
Yeah.
Anything from commissioners? All right, so hearing none, there are no follow-up items to carry forward to next month. And item 12 is adjournment. Do we hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, we're switching it up. Wow. All those in favor?
Just in case anyone was asleep.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, everybody.